Thanks for joining us on Plus TV Africa. My name is Felicity Eziwike. The Federal High Court in Abuja has formally served a warrant of release of Sambo Dasuki on order of the Director General of the State Security Services and the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice. The warrant of release dated July 16, 2018, with the title Verification of Bail Conditions and signed by Deputy Chief Registrar Mba Omotosho, was served on the SSS headquarters and the office of the Minister of Justice in Abuja. A federal high court had on July 2nd granted Mr. Dasuki conditional bail, which he perfected fully yesterday. Mr. Dasuki is being prosecuted by the federal government for alleged corruption and possession of arms. President Muhammadu Buhari submitted a 228.9 billion naira supplementary budget for 2018 to the National Assembly on Tuesday after a 6-month delay in getting the main budget approved. In a letter accompanying the draft supplementary budget, Buhari said implementing the main 9.12 trillion naira budget for the year will be extremely challenging without elaborating. The Buhari-led administration has struggled to pass its annual budget, some delayed by as much as half a year, as the Senate and the presidency have waged politically charged battles over items like infrastructure projects. The new supplementary budget includes 164 billion naira to prepare for the 2019 elections and 64.7 billion naira to reinstate projects cut by National Assembly from the main 2018 budget signed into law last month after over half a year of back and forth. Several reactions have trailed the result of the just concluded Ekiti governorship election as the candidate of the All Progressive Congress, Kayode Fayemi, has emerged the winner. The Independent National Electoral Commission on Sunday announced Mr. Fayemi as the winner of the election, having defeated the Deputy Governor of the state and candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Professor Kolapo Olushola, and over 30 others in a keenly contested election. Following the declaration, many Nigerians have mixed reactions from the results of the election. Our Plus TV correspondent Mary Chinda spoke to some political analysts on the issues raised after the election.
The last Saturday's governorship elections in Ekiti State. The election had a few card reader malfunctions to allegations of voter inducement. Nelson Ekujimi is a political analyst who was an election observer in Ekiti State. He described the election as a credible one.
The election is one that went through the normal electoral process, of which the outcome, as announced by the Chief Returning Officer on Sunday, July the 15th, reflected the will of the people as expressed at the polls.
He called for the speedy prosecution of Governor Ayo Fayoshi over what he described as a treasonable offense.
It is important for us to call for the arrest and prosecution of Governor Ayodele Fayoshi for going on the state radio and television, that is the broadcasting service of Ekiti State, to announce results of an election that was conducted in the state.
But with the elections over, what are the challenges of the incoming governor, Dr. Kayode Fayemi? Dr. Dele Ashiru projects some of the challenges that the governor-elect may face.
You may recall that as we speak, the outgoing governor is still owing the people of Ekiti State more than 6 months' salary. So Governor Fayemi will need to warm himself into the hearts of the people by first looking for resources, even if it means borrowing, to offset, the accrued salaries.
INEC has made a lot of efforts in this election. This may be a pointer of what is to be expected in the national elections in 2019.
What we saw in Ekiti is an indication that Nigeria is ready. So the question you now ask yourself is, which one gives you democracy? Is it the coercion or the values of the people?
The People's Democratic Party has rejected the INEC results and has promised to head to the court to find its victory. Will it succeed? Will there be a rerun? We will be following and updating you at Plus TV Africa. I am Mary Chinda reporting.
Still on the Ekiti State elections, a coalition of domestic and international election observers accredited to observe the July 14 governorship poll in the state said the election fell short of global best practices and electoral standards. The Independent National Electoral Commission declared the candidate of the All Progressive Congress, Kayode Fayemi, as the winner of the election. The observers, who comprised representatives from over 50 domestic organizations, include Center for Credible Leadership and Citizens Awareness, Nigeria, Justice and Equity Organization, as well as the other bodies from the African Union, among others. The observers, who praised the INEC for the proper conduct of the poll, but faulted the deployment of 30,000 policemen for the election. They also said the election was characterized by ballot box snatching, sporadic shooting and driving away of some party agents, as well as intimidation, oppression and forceful influence of electorate's free will, among others. The observers therefore held that the July 14th poll could not be recommended as a template for the forthcoming 2019 general election, as it fell short of global standards and spelled doom. Exxonmobil workers in Lagos State yesterday protested their sacking by the company's management without entitlement settlement. The workers, who began protest at about 8:12 a.m., blocked the entrance to the headquarters. They were chanting solidarity songs while displaying placards. Plus TV Africa correspondent Amaka Okoye was on the scene and brings us this report.
Because the issue here is the statute. Who is our employer? On the basis of this, the court has ruled that they employed us.
What you see going on here is just a peaceful demonstration to express our anger over our grievances over the management of Exxonmobil against us, the security workforce. The issue went to court, from the lower court up all the way to the highest court, Supreme Court, that the highest court in the land. And we won the case by the judgment of the court on the 20th of April this year. The representative of Exxonmobil from the HR, within 5 minutes, they addressed us that the company want to comply with the judgment. Meanwhile, that there will be letters that will be dispatched to our residences. We should study the letter and sign. Meanwhile, we should go back to our offices. On getting back to our offices, every one of us, 207 of us were locked out in Lagos.
When we agree on the negotiation, they have right as our employers to say we don't need your services. So when we agree on the negotiations, if they say they don't need our services, we're ready to go. Otherwise, the peaceful demonstration continues.
Brain drain is a critical issue affecting the human resource development in Nigeria. Many young academics are leaving the country on a daily basis for Europe and America in search of what some have described as better academic and economic opportunities. Education USA is a network that promotes U.S. higher education of students around the world by offering information about opportunities to study at a variety of institutions in the United States. Plus TV Africa correspondent Lakwe Adebanjo was at the U.S. consulate.
Education, they say, is a basic human right, and today at the Nigerian American Embassy, young Nigerians are gathered to embark on their future careers and further their academics in America. Nigeria remains the highest number of sub-Saharan countries going to America to pursue their studies. And I'm here to investigate why the Nigerian education system is causing such an increase in this brain drain.
Simply, it's got the most people, so that's probably the primary reason. Another reason is that U.S. colleges and universities, their admissions rep, have focused on Ghana, Kenya, Nigeria, and South Africa. Two primary reasons for that. One, those students have traditionally done well in the U.S. And the second reason is language skills. So you see now, like for instance, in September, we'll have an Education USA fair. There will be more representatives from colleges and universities here in Lagos and Abuja than we've ever had.
So I'm going to the graduate school not just to get a perfect CGPA, which is very, very possible, to actually have 4.0 over 4.0. But also, I'm also going to look at possible solutions to problems that involve unmanned aerial vehicles, which is my exact research interest. So it's not just about replicating what has been done in my bachelor's degree, but also looking at ways whereby we can actually find solutions to the area of robotics in Nigeria. Basically, robotics is, let's say, is in the infant stage in Nigeria.
For my application to be sponsored by the industry, of course, in Nigeria, you know, we don't sponsor researches, and that's why I cannot do it here. I wouldn't go back to theories again. The researches are very basic. So for me to go to the US, I actually needed a place where my research will be relevant. So I'm going to get there to look at the innovative measures. I'm going to trap CO2, convert them into valuable chemicals. If I say, let me get CO2 and then sequester them, no industry will be able to afford it with wholeheartedness because you have no practical implication on them. They are looking at its money.
I'm Lakbe Banjo, reporting for Plus TV Africa.
Former U.S. President Barack Obama on 17th of July delivered the 2018 Nelson Mandela Annual Lecture in Johannesburg on his first return to Africa since leaving office in early 2017. The Nelson Mandela Annual Lecture is one of the foundation's flagship programs to honor its founder, Nelson Mandela. Every year since 2003, global leaders have used the lecture to raise topical issues affecting South Africa, Africa, and the rest of the world. In a speech, the former U.S. president said the world would resist cynicism over the rise of strongmen, in an apparent reference to populist leaders who hold power in a number of countries.
I am not being alarmist, I am simply stating the facts. Look around. Strongman politics are ascendant, suddenly, whereby elections and some pretense of democracy are maintained, the form of it, but those in power seek to undermine every institution or norm that gives democracy meaning. In the West, you've got far-right parties that oftentimes are based not just on platforms of protectionism and closed borders, but also on barely hidden racial nationalism.
Ethiopia will also reopen its embassy in neighboring Eritrea at a yet-to-be-announced date, the country's Minister for Government Communications Affairs, Ahmed Shahid, said in a tweet. The minister cited an official of the Foreign Affairs Ministry as stating that aside the reopening of the embassy in Asmara, Ethiopia was also working to fully implement the terms of a recently signed peace deal between the two nations. Eritrea on Monday opened its embassy in Addis Ababa after the facility was closed down 2 decades ago. Sudan's Ministry of Health on Tuesday launched a polio vaccination campaign supported by the World Health Organization and UNICEF, targeting around 3 million children nationwide. The Sudanese government has undertaken the responsibility to keep Sudan free of polio to reach the global goal. Sudanese Health Minister Bashar Garada said in a joint statement with WHO and UNICEF. The vaccination will cover 10 Sudanese states: Khartoum, Northern, Naranel, Red Sea, North Kordofan, West Darfur, South Darfur, North Darfur, East Darfur, and Central Darfur. Garada describes the campaign as very important. When we return, we will bring you update on President Donald Trump's meeting with President Vladimir Putin, aftermath of the failed Turkish coup, and more. Don't go away. U.S. President Donald Trump has said he accepts U.S. intelligence agencies' conclusion that Russia interfered in the 2016 election, despite declining to do so just a day ago. He said he had misspoken on Monday and had meant to say he saw no reason why it was not Russia that meddled.
I have full faith and support for America's great intelligence agencies, always had. And I have felt very strongly that while Russia's actions had no impact at all on the outcome of the election, let me be totally clear in saying that, and I've said this many times, I accept our intelligence community's conclusion that Russia's meddling in the 2016 election took place. Could be other people also. There's a lot of people out there. There was no collusion at all.
The original comments after he met with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Helsinki drew a barrage of criticism. Even some of Mr. Trump's allies had urged him to clarify his stance. A 6-story building collapsed into an adjacent construction site in Greater Noida near New Delhi, killing at least 2 people, police said on Wednesday, as rescuers searched for more people feared trapped in the rubble. Rescue workers look for survivors amidst the rubble at the site of a collapsed residential building at Shaberi village in Greater Noida, India, July 18, 2018. Police said the building that collapsed on Tuesday night had been constructed a few years ago and did not appear to have many occupants. An Ankara court has sentenced 31 more people to life in prison over the July 2016 coup attempt in Turkey. This latest brings the total of people sentenced in 1 week to 100. The state-run news agency reports that a former general was among the defendants charged with violating the constitution. The case surrounds incident at a gendarmerie school in Ankara on the night of the coup. An Istanbul court had on Friday sentenced 72 former soldiers to life in prison over the killing of 34 people on a bridge during the coup. Business Report comes up after this, to stay with us. In the World Economic Outlook by the International Monetary Fund released on Monday, Nigeria's gross domestic product projection for 2019 has been raised to 2.3%. The increased outlook for 2019 has been attributed to a projected improvement in oil prices. In sub-Saharan Africa, growth is expected to increase to 3.8% in 2019, the fund stated. The upgraded forecast reflects improved prospect for Nigeria's economy. Its growth is set to increase from 0.8% in 2017 to 2.1% in 2018 and 2.3% in 2019. President Muhammadu Buhari has promised to secure Nigeria so that it can attract more investors into the country. He said, when Nigeria is safe and secure, investment would also be safe and yield handsome returns. He disclosed this on Monday when he met with the chief executive officers of Dutch companies at The Hague during his visit to the Netherlands. He commended the many Dutch-owned companies operating in Nigeria for dealing fairly, noting that with many of them, the relationship dates back more than 2 generations, and it is now almost a blood relation rather than commercial. On the activities from the Nigerian Stock Exchange yesterday, our business correspondent Irene Ubani brings us up to date on all the trades and deals that took place.
The Nigerian stock markets closed on a downward trend today as the all-share index dropped by 0.81% to close at 36,963.70. Top gainers were Dangote Cement, which rose by 3 naira, Dangote Sugar, 45 kobo, Custodian, 19 kobo, Flour Mills, 1 kobo, and Eterna, 1 kobo. Top decliners were Okumu Oil, which dropped by 7 naira, Stanbic, 3 naira 95 kobo, Wapco, 3 naira, International Brewery, 7 naira 41 kobo, and Julius Berger, 2 naira 7 kobo. On the list of top trades were Transcorp, Access, Zenith Bank, Sovereignings, and Custodian. Equity capitalization was 13.390 trillion naira, and the total deals in today's market was 4,178. Plus TV Africa had an exclusive interview with Rotimi Fakeijo, CEO Enterprise Capital Partners Limited, on the recurrent decline in the stock market since the commencement of the second half of the year.
Three reasons can be adduced to it. We've seen the Fed rate going up, and foreign portfolio investors are leaving emerging markets and frontier markets, of which we belong. And more so for the election that is upcoming in January next year. That definitely has a major point to play in Nigerian economy. We've seen this happen in year 2015, and again, it's coming up in 2019. Whenever this is coming up, we see a situation whereby investors would rather stay aloof from the market, pending the time they will know which direction it's going to go. Because the election is a real business and the main determinant for what happens thereafter. So sure, investors are also very conversant with safety of their investment, and if there is no continuity in the incumbent government, then definitely investors will not really want to leave their investment while the election happens. So this and more are what are actually affecting the market for now.
On the issues between the NNPC and Federal Account Allocation Committee, he said,
for the NNPC and the FAC, I believe this is very unusual. We've never really had this kind of argument before. But if the disbursement is not actually going to the various sectors, that is the federal, the local government, and the states, then definitely it's going to affect the cash flow of the MDAs and also the states. So the economy will definitely be affected or be impaired negatively.
Live from the Nigerian Stock Exchange, I am Iron Ubani, reporting for Plus TV Africa.
Still ahead on Plus TV News, it's a roundup on entertainment. We're back in a moment.
In entertainment, following the coming out of Dewey Oputa as a lesbian, her popular father, Charlie Boy, has also come out to defend his daughter's relationship with a woman. The Nigerian singer took to social media to clap back at nosy followers who have been going crazy over his daughter's post. He wrote on the platform that the best thing about being true to yourself is that nobody can insult you by telling you what you have just told them. He continued by saying acceptance has to come from within. Meghan Markle's father, Thomas Markle, has said he will not shut up or go away until he gets some attention from the royal family. Reports say he's not dismayed about his recent paid interview with The Sun and wants to be involved in the royal life. He said during the interview that he was silent for a full year, and then the press beat him up every day for hiding like a hermit in Mexico. And so he gave his story, which has, on the other hand, made the royal family extremely silent. He says regardless of the royal family's silence, he isn't going anywhere and wants to be in contact with Meghan. China's most expensive film, Asura, has become a flop of historic magnitude, having brought in only $7.3 million US. Even though the budget, as reported, was over $100 million US, its failure has been so ghastly it has been pulled from theaters in its opening weekend. The movie was the first in a trilogy that was inspired by the Tibetan Buddhist mythology and intended to promote traditional Chinese culture. The projected loss of $106 million US will make it the fifth biggest failure in movie history worldwide, right behind Sinbad, Legend of the Seven Seas, which suffered losses of $125 million according to statistics from Box Office Mojo. The movie took 6 years to make, with costly visuals highlighting 2,400 scenes, with special effects in its running time of 141 minutes. And that's it on entertainment.
Thank you, Tokumbo. And that's our news roundup of events. We'll be back later with more stories making the headlines. Do join us then. My name is Felicity Eziwike. Wishing you a great day.